What if we looked at our survival patterns as if they were allies? Because ultimately, that's what they're here to do, to protect us. The question to ask is their protection still needed, or is the war over and can they go home? And I think this is a real valuable question to ask, because the more we can inquire about this, the more we can start to differentiate who am I and when am I showing up as myself versus when am I showing up in my trauma, in my survival patterns. So to inquire about this a little more, let's dive into understanding what a survival pattern is, and then inquire a little on how we can start to be curious about getting to know the importance of these allies and if they can go home. So first off, a survival pattern ultimately is us still believing that we need to protect ourselves, and we've got all kinds of ways of doing that. We step into some sort of pattern that helps protect us, right? Ultimately, this is trauma. We're still stuck in some sort of survival response. Now, this can look like so many different things. It could look like when I walk into a group of people, I instantly feel myself get tight in the throat. I can't find my words. I go red in the face, especially when I'm being looked at or asked a question, right? I kind of start to shut down. I can't find my words and I get nervous, right? This could be a survival pattern. This is me trying to survive. It's like, there's a threat there. There's danger. I need to protect myself. This is how I've learned how to protect myself. Could also show up as, I'll use the group situation again. I walk into the group and I'm reading the room. I'm constantly checking out, how should I be? How should I respond? What's this person saying and how can I relate to them so that I fit in, right? I'm not showing up as myself. I'm showing up in these survival patterns that I've adapted to keep myself safe or to allow myself to be perceived as part of the community so that I'm okay, right? That's another example. Another example could be maybe every time you drive the car, you notice that you're gripping the steering wheel really, really tight. And whenever you stop driving, it's like you're exhausted. It's like you've just ran a marathon because you've just been so tense while driving the car, right? Another survival pattern. For some reason, these survival patterns are there because they think the danger is still around and they have to protect us. Okay, that's a survival pattern. Something that's kicking in to protect us from all these different things. There's so many different ways survival patterns can show up. So the first thing I'm going to invite you to do is get curious on how they show up in your life. You don't have to know all of them. That's probably a lot of work. But get familiar with one or two where they show up and you notice something in you change into more of a survival state. I'm trying to survive here instead of thrive and be myself. So first step, get familiar with a few survival patterns and how they show up in your life. Now, as you inquire about these patterns, get curious more about how you experience yourself in these situations. So you can recognize the behavior in them, you can maybe recognize thought patterns that show up in them, and bring some attention to what it is you experience in your body, because this is your physiology talking to you. That's like, whoa, danger, survival mode, lower brain kick in, like let's do some surviving here. Let's not just be social and engaged and feel safe, right? So start to notice how your physiology changes in these situations. So get familiar with how they show up in your day-to-day, get familiar with how they show up in your body and how it is you experience them. Then, next piece is start to get curious on how you can recognize them as an ally. These pieces are there to support you. In the past, they were needed. Maybe even still, these pieces are needed to keep you safe, to protect you, right? I'm going to use a lot of air quotes. So it's important to recognize that they play an important role and see what it's like for you to actually pause and recognize like, hey, survival pattern, hello, great, awesome, I'm glad you're here. That's the next piece. recognize the importance and then give some credit, right? These pieces have helped you survive for some time now. They need some validation. They need some appreciation. They need some kudos, thank you. And it's so interesting when you start to do this, what can happen. The other day I was running around doing too much and I could feel this anxiousness show up. And I was trying to influence the anxiousness, which is funny because I teach the opposite. But old paradigms die hard. So I noticed this anxiousness and I'm like trying to settle myself. And I'm like, wait a minute, what would it be like to welcome the anxiousness, to welcome this response that I'm having and give it some space to be there, to do its thing. It's like, hey, ally, you're stepping in. Kudos. Do it. Game on. Do your thing. Versus trying to shove it down, trying to stop it, trying to take deep breaths to make it slow down or settle. What might happen if you actually allow it to be there and give it some credit for being there? I'm going to leave it at that and invite you to get curious about these pieces. So just a quick recap. First, recognize where they show up in your life. Second, get curious on how you experience yourself in them. Third, what is it like to then notice that it's an ally, that it's a pattern that's kicking in and being like, hey, I'm here to help you. What can I do? Great. I got this for you. And then notice what you want to do. Do you want to shove it down, make it change? Or what would it be like to be like, hey, welcome, awesome ally, kick in, do your thing, kudos, I'm grateful for you, thank you. I'm going to leave it at that and let you be curious in that exploration. I encourage you to let me know how it goes because I want to know. It's a fun process, especially when this is unfamiliar to you and you tend to instead try to manipulate, change, or make something happen when you feel these things. So let me know how it goes. And I'm also in the midst of creating a program that's going to help you explore this even deeper. So stay tuned about that. For now, get curious and let me know how it goes. Here's to our allies, getting to know them, and you might be surprised they might organically start to shift and go home on their own. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Nicole, and I support people in moving out of these survival patterns and ultimately into more flow, into more expression of truth, gaining more access into ultimately why your soul is here so that you can live from that soul's purpose. So game on, get curious, and please let me know how it goes.